afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here with you today. So Duncan, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Let's start with the exercise.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that. So if I were to ask you if you think you're a creative person, most of us would say we're not creative. And then probably because you've been told you're not creative 100 times. So if I would ask you, could you draw like Pablo Picasso? Hopefully you've got a pen and a piece of paper with you. So I'm going to give you a challenge now. I want you to draw like Pablo Picasso. You can draw, you could look at the person sitting next to you. I know you're socially distancing, or you could look at Mahmoud, or you could look at me, but you cannot look down at that piece of paper. And you have less than 30 seconds to draw the picture of the face of the person you choose. It could be Mahmoud, it could be Duncan, it could be somebody in the audience. And you have 30 seconds starting from now, but you cannot look at that piece of paper. So I'm going to draw Mahmoud. There we go.
I should be the
lovely
easiest
smile.
here, Duncan, huh?
There we go, those ears, that lovely smile. Beard, got that working for him.
Well, they didn't give
the
me
dimples, don't forget the nose. Oh wait, he's got a microphone, look at that. Okay, all right, so pens down. Mahmoud, this is what you got. So see,
right.
even
I
can draw like Pablo Picasso, right? So there we are.
Great.
So congratulations on your Picassos. So a lot of people ask me, you know, what does it take to be more creative? I would argue it's easy. You were born very creative. If you'll remember your birthday one year, you got an enormous gift one year. It came in a huge box, and you sort of looked at it and you said to yourself, you got the gift. It took the gift, and that's why I call it, it's not a box, because when you were a child, you took the toy out of the box and you played with the toy for about 20 minutes. But what did you play with for the next 5 days? You played with the box. The box was your castle, it was your fort, it was your rocket ship. It was anything you wanted it to be. And then we go to school, and the first thing the teacher tells us is to draw in between the lines. And suddenly our creativity is being challenged from a very, very, very early age. When you were a child, or if you have children now, what's the one question they ask you again and again and again? Why? Why? Because they're really good at getting to the insight. So, for example, if I did a survey of 5,000 people and said, why do you come to Disney on vacation? People would tell me they come for the new attractions. But if I pause for a moment and act childlike, not childish, I say, well, why do you come for the attractions? Well, I like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Well, why do you like the Pirates ride? Well, I remember the music. Well, why is that important to you? Well, it reminds me of traveling with my father. Why is that significant? I take my son today. On the fourth or fifth way, you've got to the real reason they're coming. They're not coming for a new capital investment strategy. They're coming for their own personal memory and nostalgia. That's a communication campaign, not a capital investment strategy. The children are born, you're all born creative. You were all born curious, and then you got a job, or you went to school and you were told to stop asking the second why, because there's only one right answer. We're all born with an amazing intuition. We have 100 billion neurons here, and we have 100 million neurons in our stomach. But think about the decisions you make every day and how many times you say, I went with my gut. It's a very, very fast computer. And the last one is imagination. You all have dreams. Right? We still have dreams today. They say that artificial intelligence will eliminate between 20 and 30% of the workforce in the next 10 years. But what are the 4 skill sets that cannot be programmed into artificial intelligence? The very 4 skill sets we were all born with as a child: creativity, imagination, curiosity, and intuition. Those, I believe, will be the most employable skill sets the next decade, simply because they can't be programmed.
Great. Okay, so would you like to walk us through more of what triggers your creativity, Duncan?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd be delighted to. The number one barrier to creativity for most people is we hear ourselves say, I don't have time to think. Well, why is that important? Well, think for a moment about where you are and what are you doing when you get your best ideas. We'll hear people say commuting, walking, jogging, in the shower, falling asleep, waking up. Well, but never at work. Well, that's a real issue, isn't it? And think about that last argument you had with somebody where you're shouting at each other, and you walk away from that argument, and about 5 minutes later, what just popped into your head? The killer one-liner, that one perfect, beautiful line that you wished you'd used during the argument. And so, but you didn't. So here's why this is important, and by giving yourself time to think. When you're in an argument, your brain is very busy defending itself. But the moment you step away from that argument, you came up with the perfect one line. When you're in the shower, when you're jogging, when you're commuting, when you're waking up, you come up with the big idea. Why is it by giving yourself time to think, does that actually work? Playfulness, as I talked about earlier on. When you're playful, here's what happens. Most of us live in 4 brain states during the day. We live in busy beta, where the door between your conscious and subconscious brain is firmly closed. But here's the problem. 87% of your brain is subconscious, but you only have access to 13% of your brain when you're very busy at work, and we hear ourselves say, I don't have time to think. But the moment you're playful, the moment you give yourself time to think, you open that door just wide enough into what I call amazing alpha, where the door is open just wide enough to access your subconscious. You can still make informed decisions, but you can have big ideas. And for those of you who think about, I get my best ideas falling asleep or waking up, that's the brain state known as thoughtful theta. It was actually used by Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors of the 20th century. He would have this an expression called when the penny drops, that eureka moment when I get the big idea. Well, Thomas Edison would put a penny between his knees, sit down in an armchair and fall asleep, and put a tin tray on the floor. And as his muscles would relax, the penny would drop, it would hit the tin tray, and it would wake him up, and he would write down whatever he was thinking. So if you're one of those people who gets their best ideas while you're falling asleep or waking up, then just keep a notepad by the bed, because you'll promise yourself you won't forget the idea by 9 o'clock in the morning, but you do. The challenge for most of us is we don't give ourselves time to think. The other challenge is what I call your own river of thinking. Our own river of thinking is our own expertise. It doesn't matter what industry you work in. The longer you've worked in that industry, the more intellectual you are, the more intelligent you are, and the more. My river of thinking on Disney after 30 years is very wide, very deep, and very fast flowing. But we're being asked to get out of our river of thinking and think differently more and more often. And so here's a tool to help you do that. It's called What If. What if the rules no longer applied? This was created by Walt Disney for the film Fantasia in 1940. Walt was asked, he wanted it mist inside the theatre during the rain sequence and heat during the fire sequence. And the theatre owner said, no, Walt, too expensive. So Walt listed the rules of going to a theatre. I must go at a set time. I must sit down. It is dark. I must sit next to somebody. I can only watch one movie at a time. I, Walt, can't control the environment. So he said, well, what if I could control the environment? Well, let me see. Well, but the more provocative your what if question, the further out of your river of thinking you'll get. So he said, what if I took my movies out of the theatre? Well, that was an absurd suggestion in 1940. He said, well, if I take them out of the theatre, they couldn't be 2-dimensional anymore. They'd fall over. What if I made them 3-dimensional? Well, if I made them 3-dimensional, I'd have to have people play the characters. Well, what if I put them in costume so they were more themed? Well, I couldn't have the pirates live next to the princesses because people wouldn't be immersed in Cinderella's story. Ooh, what if I put them in different lands? What if I called it Disneyland? So I'm sure, like me, you used to go to a video rental store in the United States of America. It was called Blockbuster. And the founder of Netflix listed the rules of going to Blockbuster. And he said, you have to drive to a physical store. You have to go at a set time. I only get 3 at a time. I must pay a late fee. And he said, what if there was no physical store? And he looked around, and YouTube was already existing, streaming amateur content. So he said, what if I create a service where I just stream professional content? So I'll do a deal with the studios. Nobody would have to be Kind of Rewind. Nobody would have to drive to a store. I'll cut the rental off at 24 hours. I'll be open 7 days a week, 24 hours. And I'll cut the rental off at 24 hours, and nobody will have to pay a late fee. I'll call it Netflix. I'll take my idea to Blockbuster 5 times. They'll turn me down 5 times, and I'll take them out of business in less than 5 years. Uber, if you're familiar with Uber or car sharing services, the founders of Uber were in a restaurant late at night. It was raining. They couldn't get a taxi. And they asked themselves, what if every car was a cab? And that gave birth to Uber. Mark Zuckerberg, when he was a student at Harvard University, they couldn't get together on the campus because it was too much snow. And he said, what if we could socialize when we weren't together? And gave birth to Facebook. It's a remarkably simple tool to use. Another one is called How Else? How, by simply re-expressing our challenge, can we stop ourselves from thinking the same way we always do and help us think differently? On July 17th, 1955, when Walt Disney opened the doors to Disneyland, he said, we will not have any customers in our park, we will only have guests. Now think about how you feel when you're treated as a customer, and think about how you feel when you're treated as a guest. He said, we will not have any employees, we'll only have cast members. They'll be cast for a role in our show. They'll wear a costume, not a uniform. And with that simple re-expression, he created a level of hospitality that's never been replicated or duplicated. If I were to ask you today, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's quite fascinating. I just want to share something similar and relevant to this about also, how can we look at the next level of doing things? How can we look at the unnecessary stuff? Normally, when we hear the word unnecessary, we always think about the negligible things, right? Things that we shouldn't be doing or things that we shouldn't really be caring so much about. And Tim Liebrecht, actually the author of Business Romantic, he actually advises us to do the opposite. So he says, do the unnecessary. Because if you think about it, whatever brief you get, okay, someone asks you to do something, and you do it, do they really feel impressed? Do they really, feel like really having that sort of like wow effect or whatever? If everyone fulfills the brief, there is nothing that you are really adding from your end. And from that point of view, I always say, think about the unnecessary, think about raising the bar, and think about what else you can do. And I sometimes say, do even the insane, not only the unnecessary. Can we switch? So I want to also share, if I asked Duncan what triggers your creativity, I want to share with you what triggers my creativity. And for me, it's the envisioning of the final outcome. It's the moment. It's the experience that we are creating. Okay, after a week, after 2 weeks, you can also envision that event that you are at. Those people who were designing this, they have a vision in mind, right? There is something that they are trying to do. There is an experience that they are trying to create for you, right? This is what I keep on thinking about. And then I ask, okay, how can we do it differently this time? How can we make it sort of like out of this world? And that always drives me to look at, okay, how can we impress and how can we immerse ourselves in the reality of the customer? This is an example of something recent that we did. We have all been hit with this crisis, and we started to do virtual events, but most of the virtual events look like one another, right? And we asked the question, what do people miss? It is the physical location. So we basically created a virtual ville entirely with all the things that you would need in there. There is a cinema, there is a cafe. If you are doing this event on Friday from your home and you have your child, there is actually a playground for them to play there. You can see this is a coffee shop that you can go there, hang in there. There's content about brewing coffee, roasting coffee. On the third day, we actually opened with a virtual cinema that had Tony Fadell delivering a talk to the audience. But again, this is much more about trying to simulate an existing experience. You have all attended physical events, and we're trying you to feel as such in there, right? Can we push this even more? So after we did this event, Miro, which is a giant in the collaboration technology, they actually reached out to us. And they said, can you design our upcoming global conference? Now, this is a technology giant in the remote collaboration asking a Saudi local firm to actually design their global conference. How many attendees are attending this event? 30,000 attendees. We went on and we worked on this in 2 weeks. And we tried this time to imagine, okay, what if we deliver an experience that you haven't actually gone through before? And this was the result, taking you into space. Now, hopping from one planet to another and, hanging with your, fellow astronauts and things like that, the comments that we received on this, I cannot stop geeking about. This is hands down the best virtual event I have ever attended. This is out of this world. And there are lots of networking activities that you did there. Actually, pets were networking together on some of them, and you see powered by Hewed on one of the planets. And this is the look, for example, in a session, like as such, with all the resources and stuff like that. And out of immersion and empathy, you start to see actually what is happening, and with all the moments that you capture, you start to create something like this. So this is when you start to see all the opportunities, all the problems, all the ecosystems and the connections between them, and something like that. And this actually turned later on to be another innovation lab for a government entity. And I get inspired by all the comparables, by all the analogies, by all the metaphors. I always think about, okay, if organizations are like football, how come in football the stars are the one who are playing the game, but in organizations the stars are actually on top of each one and they are not actually playing the game? Okay, if it is like football, then how come in football they actually train much more than they play, and in organizations who are playing all the time and who are training much, much less? how in fashion they actually create aspiration and they help us get there rather than trying to get to where we want to aspire. And these things help you always and all the time come up with that different thinking, that new thing, and what else that Duncan was speaking about. And I want to go back, Duncan, to your creative process and what you can share with us from the great learnings in your journey with Disney.
Thank you. And by the way, I love the space example. And send me a headset and I'll be in there for you. So
Sure.
One of the other tools that you can use is called the naive expert. Who or what is the naive expert, and why should you invite them into every session you run? The naive expert is somebody who doesn't work for you and potentially doesn't work in your industry. What does this give them permission to do that you can't? It gives them permission to ask the silly question that you can't ask in front of your peers because you're embarrassed that you don't know the answer. It gives them permission to throw out the audacious idea ungoverned by your constraints. They won't solve the challenge for you. That is a remarkably unrealistic expectation. But they will say something that stops you thinking the way you always do and helps you think differently. So, for example, we were designing a new retail dining and entertainment experience for the Hong Kong Disney Resort. We had in the room 12 white male American architects over the age of 50. That's called groupthink. So I invited in a young female Chinese chef. Why? Because she wasn't male, because she wasn't an architect, because she wasn't American, and because she wasn't over 50. She was the antithesis of everybody else in the room. And I gave them a challenge. I don't know if you've got your pens and piece of paper, but I'll give you the challenge at the same time. I'll have a go myself. I asked each of the people in the room, the architects and the chef, to draw an object, and I only gave them 7 seconds to do it. And so if you have your pen and your piece of paper, I would ask you please to draw a house. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When they held up their drawings, every single one of us held up the same drawing. Why? Because we had stayed in our river of thinking of what a house should look like, except the young female Chinese chef. She drew dim sum architecture, which your dim sum would come in. Why would she do that? Well, because she was Chinese and she was a chef. And so we all laughed because we realized we stayed in our river of thinking what a house should look like. She gave us permission to get out of our river and think differently. On the way out the door, somebody put a Post-it note over her drawing that said, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. 7 years later, the strategic brand positioning for the Shanghai Disney Resort became distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. So how does this work in more recent terms? If we'd asked the question that companies tend to ask themselves every single day, how might we make more money? And by the way, I would suggest we stop asking that question because Generation Z, who are coming up underneath the millennials, care more about our purpose than our profit. But if we'd asked how might we make more money, we could have put the gate price up at Walt Disney World by 3%, and we'd have made our quarterly results. But instead of that, we reversed the challenge and asked, how might we solve the biggest consumer pain point? Everybody knew what it was called standing in line. And we said, well, what if there were no lines? We didn't know how to do it at the time. If you know how to do it, that's iteration, not innovation. So we said, well, what if we eliminated all the front desks in our hotels and nobody ever had to check in or check out again? What if we eliminated all the turnstiles at the front of the park and you didn't wait to get in? What if you didn't wait in line for your favorite character meet and greet or your favorite attraction, or to pay for food or merchandise? And we looked around the world, because innovation often comes from looking outside of your industry, as Mahmoud referred to just now. And what we found was RFID technology. All we did was put it in a little plastic band. We called it Disney's Magic Band. Now, when you enter the Walt Disney World Resort today, if you're staying in one of the hotels, it is your room key. You don't check in or check out. I don't need the turnstiles at the front of the park have gone. I swipe, I'm in immediately. I don't wait 20 minutes. I have my reservations for my favorite 3 character meet and greets and my favorite rides on my Magic Band. I swipe and I go. I want an item of merchandise sent to my hotel room, I touch it once. I want it sent to my house, I touch it twice. I want my hot dog with my pickles on the side and mayonnaise. I'm going to Pinocchio's Village House for lunch today. I save it on my phone. When I walk into the restaurant recognizes I'm here. I touch table 47, the food comes fresh to me. Had we have asked how might we make more money, we'd have made 3% revenue gain. But by turning the challenge around from a design thinking point of view, as Mahmoud referred to, and asking it from the consumer's point of view, the average guest at Walt Disney World now has 2 hours free time that they didn't have 4 years ago. And what is it you do with your free time? We spend money when we have free time. Yeah. So record intent to return, record intent to recommend, record revenues, but far more importantly, data capture. 25 million visits a year are now going through the door, essentially live crowdsourcing the future design of every product and service Disney creates, simply by telling them what they like and what they don't.
That's great. And I would share with you some lessons as well from the service design world, if we can switch examples. And I can go back then also to Duncan later on. So can you okay. Cool. So now talking, yeah, okay. So how do you feel looking at this photo? Scared, terrified, uncomfortable? Where is he seated? On the edge? Yeah. Where are you seated? On a chair, right? But what is the reality? I mean, why do you feel as such? The speaker before me was speaking about the empathy marketing, right? And this is the feel that you immediately get. You see someone in such a situation, you feel that you are in such a situation, and then you immediately connect with them, and then you feel scared while you are actually at complete safety. I want to share with you an example. It's from a short video that Cleveland Clinic prepared. And I want you to look and observe the different experiences people are going through at the same time, at the same space, with different emotions, and actually the intertwined experiences that they have. And you see who is actually delivering experience for whom and who feels as such. I'm only going to play 1 minute. I will share at the end of the talk QR code with a Miro board that has all the resources that we have shared here, okay? No. And these are, I mean, this is the result that you normally should be able to achieve as you immerse yourself in customers' reality and see all the pain points and the problems. And as you see, the deeper you actually connect, the more you actually see the problem, and the more you can actually come up with much more fitting solutions rather than something that's matching to what your expectation is about for that reality. And let's say that you understood and then you used a lot of ideation techniques. Some of them are covered here by Duncan, and there are other ones. What do you get after that? You get into prototyping, right? I mean, you need to communicate whatever you are thinking about and making sure that everyone is actually on the same page. We are actually all thinking of the same thing rather than, oh, I'm thinking of this and that. Just create it. Just show it to me. What is it that you're actually expecting? And then you can actually validate it as well. And these are examples of how you can actually prototype any concept that you can think of. It doesn't really require a lot of tools. SAP Scenes is one of the greatest things. This example here on the left-hand side was actually done in our office. We're hosting a jam, and the people just used the meeting room like a car. So they were creating sort of like digital assistants. So their problem was about traffic. And rather than solving the problem of traffic and how long you take to get to work, they just said, we'll just make it enjoyable. And you can see that solution that they came up with. Holding a plate as the driving wheel.
حياك الله دكتور حسن فنان صبحك الله برضا والنعيم.
يا هلا الله يحييك.
You get the idea. And this is my best prototype of all times. In 2012, I heard about the Global Service Jam. This is an event that happens in more than 80 cities around the world at the same time for service designers. And I wanted to do this, and I said, OK, fine. Can I do the Riyadh Service Jam? I collected lots of material, and I put them in a suitcase, and I went to the Innovation Tower in King Saud University, and I started the event. And actually, when I started the event, I was by myself. So when I started the jam and they kicked off worldwide, I was the only attendee, sort of. The organizer, as they say, you know, the attendee of your own dinner or something like this, of your own party. But even after like a couple of hours, two joined me. But then in the years, as the years passed by, you can see where this got, okay? So this video is from the most recent physical jam that we did. That is in 2019 in King Abdullah Financial District. More than 21 partners and more than 650. This was actually the second year we are the largest jam worldwide in Riyadh. So in 2018, we did it in the PSU, Prince Sultan University, with 160. To give you context, jams are normally like 30 to 50 persons per jam. So this is like 9 jams in one. And we continue to enhance it all the time. And then normally after you do all of that, you immerse yourself, find the opportunities, ideas, come up with solutions, prototype, etc. You normally fit them in whatever we call service blueprint. How actually this experience that you see right now, all the touch points that you are interacting with, the stage, myself, the great organizers and ushers that you have seen, and the stuff that you don't also see behind your visibility line, okay? What's happening in the backstage, what we have been doing before the event, etc. This is the stuff that you don't see, but you can align how the organization, all of the organization, deliver actually an end customer experience. Back to you, Duncan.
So, Mahmoud, are you up for an exercise?
I can. I mean, if you have something in mind.
Excellent. Yeah, perfect. So, are you familiar with Star Wars?
No, tell me.
No. Do you know the film Star Wars?
Oh, yeah.
Are you familiar with it?
I haven't watched. I mean, I played the games, but I didn't watch the movie, actually. Yeah.
No, it's okay. So, how about Harry Potter? Are you familiar with Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we're going to do a Harry Potter party tonight, you and I. We've got $100,000. Here's the problem with when we're having ideas. We don't know how to nurture our ideas. We constantly shoot. When you throw out an idea, you hear people say, we don't have the time. We don't have the budget. We tried that last year. That's not a strategic plan. And the more expertise and the more experience we have, the more reasons we say no straight away. And we don't even consider the new idea. So we're going to brainstorm an idea for a party tonight. I'm going to throw out 2 or 3 ideas to you. And I'd ask you each time, I want you to respond with the words no, because first, and tell me why you think we shouldn't be doing that particular idea. So, Mahmoud, I was thinking we could come to your house and we're going to put the sorting hat from Harry Potter in your front door, and all the good people watching this conference today will get to go into Gryffindor, and all the bad people will go into Slytherin.
Well, I think maybe we can't do that because of the social distancing. Well, let's say, first of all. Right. And we have quite a large number of people in here.
Okay. So, what if we created a dining room with the floating candles?
Yeah, I think, well, is that still in my house or is that somewhere else?
It's wherever you want it to be.
Well, I'm worried about the safety aspects of this and if, it would catch fire or anything.
Okay, so what if we just served butterbeers and gave everybody Dumbledore's wand?
Well, I don't know if that will be culturally fit or not, but yeah.
Okay. No, perfect. So, end of exercise. So let me ask you a question. Do you think our idea was getting bigger or smaller as we were building it?
Well, I think I believe that when you give something to people, they actually have something to chew on, and then come back to, you know.
Right, but would you say our idea that started with this enormous great dining room and ended up with a plastic wand, would you say it was getting bigger, or do you think it was getting smaller?
I think smaller, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do the exercise again. 2 very simple words from the word of improv. I'd like you, every single time I throw out the idea to you, I would like you, instead of saying no because, I'd like the first 2 words you choose to be yes and build on the idea with me, okay? So, I was thinking we could create a magic potions room and everybody could come in and create magic tricks and turn themselves into whatever they wanted to be.
Yeah, and then they take selfies and they post them online, and then everybody else join us.
Yes, and we could have a Quidditch match where we could all run around the room with a broom.
Yeah, and then we can see what other objects that we can use around also, and that improves the experience.
Yes, and we could build Diagon Alley in the middle of Riyadh, and everybody could get to go through Diagon Alley and go into Ollivanders and choose their, or in fact have their wand choose them.
Yeah, and we get a great coverage for this, and we make it a weekly event.
So, perfect, thank you. So, question to you this time. Would you say our idea this time was getting bigger or smaller?
Well, definitely bigger, yeah.
Okay, now, and far more importantly, when we finished building that idea together, whose idea was it?
It started from your side and it became ours.
Ours.
Yeah.
2 very simple words from the world of improv that give you the power to transfer my idea to our idea. We work in big organizations. We have lots of hierarchy, lots of approval levels, lots of local constituents to get on board. The moment you can transfer the power of my idea to our idea is the moment you accelerate its opportunity to get done. So the next time you're in a meeting, if you tend to be a reductionist and you're constantly the person shooting down the ideas, or you're surrounded by people who are saying no because, just remind them, we are not green lighting this idea for execution today. We are merely greenhousing it together and get everybody to start with the words, yes and.
I absolutely agree. And we have actually tried the yes and thing once in a meeting. And I can tell you how automatically people feel very guilty anytime they criticize rather than build on other people's ideas. And it starts to be like a small thing to emerge in the culture of organization, and people feel like they're already, like everyone is looking at them once they say, but I think, and that stuff. And I remember when I visited Stanford, this school, they have there a skeleton, and they say, and this is the guy who said, yes, but.
Yes, but here's the thing. If you use the words yes and, it has, as you said, makes the idea bigger, not smaller. It transfers the power of my idea to our idea, but far more, it also stops the yes but or the yes aura, because let's say we're working on a Harry Potter idea. If I say the word, let's say you're coming at me with this fabulous Harry Potter idea, and I say yes and, nobody's brain is fast enough to go to a different topic. So it actually forces you to stay on the same idea.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Okay, so the last point here is how can we here, and also the advice to the audience, enhance our creativity? What should we do? Like, I don't know, on daily basis, or something to give them overnight, they do and come back here tomorrow, and then they talk to us about it. Tell me, Duncan.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah,
Say
you
that
can't
again.
hear me. Okay, so I'm asking, how can we enhance our creativity? Can we tell them something to do, or set of things, or maybe something they do overnight?
No, absolutely. So one of the things I always do is I make people playful before I'm starting the session. Why do I do that? First of all, I brief in the session 3 or 4 days beforehand. And why do I do that? Because people will go to all the places they go where they have their best ideas. They'll go jogging, they'll go commuting, they'll go driving, they might shower, they may go to bed, they may wake up, and they'll actually come in with the ideas. But when they come in, their boss has just sent them an email, and the door between their conscious and subconscious brain is firmly closed. They're stressed. My job is to open that door back up again. How do I do that? I'm playful. And I run a series of energizers. And if anybody wants to contact me through social media afterwards, I'd be happy to send you some of those. They are a 60-second exercise designed specifically to make you laugh So why would I do that in a serious business? Because the moment I hear laughter, I know that I've opened the door, metaphorically, between your conscious and subconscious brain and given you access to the other 87% of your subconscious. Another thing that freshness is very important. I'm sure that you think about your everyday life. When before COVID, you used to go to your favorite restaurant, I'm sure, and you always ordered the same thing on the menu, or you sleep on the same side of the bed every night, or perhaps when you commute home and you get home and you look at the front door and you think, how did I get here? Here's what happened on the way home. Your brain physically shut down. No fresh stimulus in, no new ideas out. So how can we get new fresh stimulus into our lives? Perhaps by reading a different newspaper, by listening to a different radio station, by going for a walk. When you found Steve Jobs on the Pixar campus, you found him going for a walk. He was giving himself time to think. And he designed the entire Pixar campus around something called unplanned collaboration. The campus was designed specifically to bring two people together who were not supposed to meet, to have a conversation they weren't supposed to have, to spark a new idea.
Great, thank you, Duncan. And I totally agree, and I think the more you actually expose yourself to much more resources, especially if outside your general context, the more you actually get lots of ideas, because you basically feed in your brain, and then unconsciously everything connects together. And I want to leave you with the idea that it's all about the mindset. Who here had a nightmare before? Can you raise your hand? Okay. Now, let me tell you that the nightmare and the sweetest dream that you can have is both the same thing. Basically, your role in any nightmare is more of a victim. Someone or something is chasing you up, and you're looking for a savior. If you switch it and you become the savior, you feel the greatest hero in the world. You are saving someone. So it's all about whatever problem you see tomorrow, today, as you exit this door, you can just change your mindset around it. Should I suffer about this, or should I actually do something about it? The moment you decide to do something about it, you become the hero, you become the savior, you don't become the victim anymore. And with heroism comes control, with heroism comes responsibility, but also comes abundance. Thank you very much, Duncan, and I will ask the MC to come in for the questions. And I asked you to give them something to do tonight, so I will give them something to do tonight. So can we go back to the slides? OK, please scan this code. This includes the video I have shared, other videos I haven't shared as well. There are great tests there for your awareness. If you think you are someone who is quite observant, please do them and catch me tomorrow and tell me how it felt. And also, it includes a lot of ideation methods.
Thank you, Mahmoud, and thank you, Duncan. I'll give you a chance to scan the code. In the meantime, I'll ask you a question, Mahmoud, if I may. So you've been working with the Innovation and Service Design Department for a while. What are the key tools and processes that you have been using? Yeah, so the empathy part I have spoken about. Ideation, I skip, and there are some tools for this in there. And prototyping is a major part of this as well. If you want to hear more, definitely you can take courses, do masters, and lots of other things. So we still have a couple of questions, so we can ask Duncan and Mahmoud any questions from the audience or from the virtual audience as well. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand, and the ushers will come to you. If you're raising your hand and I can't see you, please shout. OK, so we have a question in the back. If we have someone from the ushers, thank you.
If you have a great idea, but you just don't know who to share it with, like someone who can help you take it somewhere, but like maybe someone you know and you trust won't really help you. So how do you make an idea more than just an idea?
Go ahead, Duncan, take the question.
Ideas are the most subjective thing on the planet. You like pink, I like green, Mahmoud likes purple, but Mahmoud is the boss today, so we're going to do the purple idea. Well, but what if it wasn't the right idea for the consumer and the right idea for your business? The problem with ideas are they're horribly subjective, but there is a marvelous tool that takes subjectivity out of the equation, and I'm going to demonstrate it for you now. And I learned this from Sir Richard Branson at Virgin, and he created the simplest of tools to share with anybody. It looks like a starfish. I'm going to hold this right up to the camera so you can see it. So it has 5 criteria on it, and you can decide what the criteria might be. It might be, is this idea a strategic brand fit? Does it align with our corporate objectives? Is it embedded in consumer truth? Will it meet our financial goals? Can I execute the idea in the next 12 to 24 months? And is it newsworthy? Let's just say that those are our examples. Gentlemen, could you get me another colour pen, please? So let's say those are our 5 criteria. Is this a strategic brand fit? Is it embedded in consumer truth? Is it financially viable? Can I get it into the market in the next 12 to 24 months? And is it newsworthy? So what you do is, with each idea that you've got, you ask yourselves, how does this idea meet the criteria? So you might say, idea number 1 is it does a fairly good job of being aligned with our brand. It does a fairly good job of being embedded in consumer truth. We're not sure we can get it executed in the next 12 to 24 months, and we don't think it's very newsworthy, but we do think it'll make a good amount of financial results. And so just like you did when you were a child, you draw the dots. Then you take a different color for a different idea, and you do the same exercise, and you ask exactly the same questions. Idea number 2, is it strategically aligned with our company? Absolutely. Is it embedded in consumer truth? Completely. Can we get it done in the next 12 to 24 months? We feel good about it. Is it newsworthy? Yeah, oh yeah, my God, it's newsworthy. And we think it's going to make us a lot of money. And very simply, the idea that meets your criteria, the further out you go against each mark, the more your idea meets your criteria. So instead of being Mahmoud's purple idea, we're actually choosing the idea that is, we're taking subjectivity out of the idea business and making it an objective decision. I think if you were to use that tool, you'll find it much easier to convey your ideas. Another tool you could use to convey your ideas is realness. So, for example, we had 2 young ladies with an idea we had a hotel in Hawaii, and we were trying to convince mothers of young children to go to this hotel in Hawaii. And they presented a presentation where they came up with an idea to give these mothers some things that they would normally have to carry. Well, I'm a 50-year-old white guy. I don't have young children anymore, and I've forgotten all the stuff that you have to take. So I declined the idea, and they said, could we present it again next week? And I said, absolutely, of course. And this goes back to what Mahmoud said about prototyping earlier on, about making it real for people. So instead of coming in and presenting a PowerPoint presentation, they just put on the table all the stuff that mothers would have to take on a 3-day, 4-day vacation with 3 children, 3 strollers, 3 diaper bags, 3 backpacks, 3 car seats, and it just looked like Stuff Mountain. And instantly I walked in and approved the idea. So I think the tool, the Stargazer tool that I showed you just now, but equally by making it visual for people and by bringing it to life for people. There's a very famous example of an Imagineer called Joe Rohde, who, when he was trying to convince the CEO of Walt Disney to create an animal theme park, he presented a deck, and he was trying to convey how close and personal you get up with the animals, but nobody believed him. So he asked again to present his idea the following week. And this time, instead of coming in with a PowerPoint presentation, now I'm not going to recommend this to everybody, he brought in a real tiger to the meeting. And suddenly the idea got approved really quickly because he made it very real for people.
Thank you, Duncan, for the very visual answer. We can take one more question. We have 1 minute. We have the lady in the bottom here.
Thank you very much, Duncan. My question is addressed to you. The talk is very creative, actually. It's not a PowerPoint slide or anything. So the fact that you came up with drawings of your own and taught us about creativity is by itself creative. Thank you. My point is, do you believe that people are born creative, or is it something that we can learn to be? Okay. And if yes, like, what is your take-home message for us to be more creative? Like, what do you advise us? Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, it's very fair. We've all been told we're not creative. We work in engineering, we work in education, we work in science, we work in... You're not creative. No, I disagree, I'm sorry. We were all born creative. We've just had it squashed out of us. Creativity is the ability to have an idea. We can all do it. Innovation is the ability to get it done. But here's the gift I will give you to take home. There's a very famous saying in the Western world, there is no time like the present. Do it now. I would reverse that and offer you this. If you think about the most innovative companies in the world, one of the companies you would probably list is Google. Well, what is it that Google has that we don't? They give themselves time to think. It's called 20% time. I'm not suggesting you could take a day a week, but perhaps 1 day a month. No meetings, no presentations, no emails. And I would reverse there is no time like the present and simply call it there is no present like the time. Give yourselves time to think.
Thank you, Duncan, once again. بس أبغى أتأكد من الكنترول. عندنا سؤال على الشاشة. Is there a link between passion and creativity? Duncan or Mahmoud?
Yeah.
We'll do 10 seconds each. Duncan and then Mahmoud.
I put my son's Buzz Lightyear on a space shuttle and sent him up to space. He's the longest-serving astronaut in space. How did I do that? Passion, because there were millions of people trying to get in my way to say we can't do it. But I was passionate about the project, so I got it done.
Thank you, Duncan. Mahmoud.
Yeah, and I think, well, definitely there is always a link, and you can be more creative about things that you are much more passionate about. But I think enthusiasm follows action. So even if you don't, at the moment, feel passionate about something in particular and understand that there are so many people that find themselves in such a position and they feel, no, I haven't yet been excited about something, just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it and you will get excited. You are just tricking yourself and your brain is just putting you in another paradox.
Thank you, Mahmoud, and thank you, Duncan, for this amazing talk and these great answers.
Thank you.
We look forward to the next talk.
Thank you very much.
شكرا كنترول.